So what I want you to do in the, right now is just assess how it is that it feels like for you to stand in your normal stance. Don't do anything,
okay.
just feel it. All right, and then I want you to remember what it's like in the morning, 10 o'clock, lunch break, what it feels like to bike. When you get up in the middle of the night, what's it like? How hard is it to go back to sleep? Do you feel rested? Okay, what's your mood when you get upset versus after you got adjusted? Okay, so I want you to look at everything because we're taking care of the master system. Okay, so in this posture, take a deep breath again. Remember what it feels like when you lock out. Okay, and now put your head down as far as you can. Remember what it feels like and go backward. And I want you to do that cycle twice. And please pay attention to how you feel.
That feels okay.
Okay? So it feels okay, but remember how that feels. That's the point. That feels okay to you. Watch what happens. So turn your head left and right as far as you can. And tell me where you feel resistance.
Trapezius.
Okay? Now let's compare that to the other
That's
side.
the only body part I know. Okay, turn the other side.
Okay?
Less.
Okay?
That's
Okay.
feeling. I mean, it
Okay.
feels fine on the right.
Feels fine. Now, can you tell which way you're turning your head more?
Probably here.
You turn your head
No,
left
no,
there.
I would say right.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you do. So remember, at any given point, if you can turn your head farther that side than you can this side, remember all these muscles are respiratory muscles. Is that okay that one side does one hell of a lot more work, and then on top of that, your head's so far forward, you have a reverse neck, right? What do you think is happening with the respiratory muscles back here versus here? All right, so can you see that that would even create stress and breathing, and hence would it cause heart issues? Because it's a sequence, isn't it? Your heart would have to work harder to do the same work. So we can go through the system of events when things are in the right place, but you kind of get the picture, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to walk it out, and then remember what that feels like, and then after we're done, that means feet, that means how your normal gait is, and once again, as you say, if it feels normal, remember what normal feels like to you, okay? So I don't know what your experience is with getting a chiropractic adjustment in the past.
I mean, a little bit, not a lot.
Okay, now watch this here.
These are flip flops. I'm gonna do this. Yeah.
This table only goes about a finger height, less than a finger height high. It goes metal to metal, so that things in motion stay in motion, things at rest stay at rest. Okay? So whatever stops that quickly.
Did you clean this before the last
Yeah,
person?
yes, I did. So whenever I hold pressure, when that table drops,
Yeah.
it's going to stretch the ligaments in the plane it should be moving. You'll occasionally hear pops, and when you do, these joints have 6 fluid-filled surfaces around them. So it's near your ears, it has water conduction and bone conduction, and they're massively bigger than these joints. So when I put a thrust in, it may be a different experience than you've had in the past. The flip side is we're separating joints, which you saw yours were going together. So when we separate the joints, is that what you want? And when I do, it's going to be a really loud sound.
It doesn't hurt.
If you focus on how it feels good. If you focus on the sound, it might sound like Armageddon in there.
Oh yeah, I won't worry about that as much.
Okay, well, you're gonna find that it actually feels pretty good. And if on your first adjustment it's even uncomfortable, watch how long any discomfort lasts. It lasts seconds, and you'll be through that cycle. The next time I adjust you, it'll be even easier because we stretch you past scar tissue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a very, very safe thing.
All right.
All right. If you have any questions, and I know that you have concerns over your neck, but just about everyone does. That's why we have tables and things to make it safe and quick so it's not painful.
All
Okay?
right.
All right, so I'm going to have you lay belly down, put your palms up like this. I'm going to put some paper on your face, okay?
Oh,
I'm going to put your paper face. Now, I want you to know that in the training of chiropractic, one of my electives was origami.
oh yeah.
I just made
Yeah,
you
fold.
a seagull.
Good. I could see you did a lot of work for that one. All right. And that, tell me, yeah, you want me to put my hair behind my ear?
No, no.
Excellent.
Now give me your hands. I'm going to have you put your hands palms up so you're not gripping anything.
All right.
Okay, now I want you to take one leg, it doesn't matter which leg, and I want you to lift one leg as high as you can, straight. Now leave it there for a second, let it down. Remember what it feels like. Now let's do the other one. Okay? So does it feel different from one side to the other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Left is harder.
Okay, so once again, if one leg's lifting higher than the other, is the joints in your feet, knee, hip, spine, Are they stressed on one side more versus the other? And do they do multiple functions like respiratory as well as back muscles and leg muscles, right? All right, so I'm going to adjust you. And I'm going to show you what the table feels like before we do anything, okay? Now watch, you're just going to drop. Okay, so that's how far you drop, and that's the sound. And then, just like your knuckles popping, when I put a thrust in here, it'll be much louder, but focus on how it feels, and you go, oh, that wasn't too bad at all.
Okay.
All right? Give me a point.
I'm not looking forward to this. I don't like this.
You know what?
Yeah.
This is really good to record because eventually you can't wait to get on the table. All right, so this is really good to record.
Good.
Okay, give me another leg lift with your legs, please. Okay, just for consistency down. Now let's do another one on the right. Oh, there you go. So much different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so remember, it's just a pop. We know you have a little fear factor, and that's perfectly fine. You're going to find out that it's all safe. Okay, now take a deep breath, and on the way out, I'm going to push the table down, and you'll hear a loud sound in your neck. Blow out. That's as bad as it gets. Can you handle it?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, well, I always start with the hardest one on someone, so that way we get rid of the fear factor, okay? Okay, now remember, you had a big curve to the side in your neck here, right? And your neck wasn't able to move as far to one side. Not too bad? Okay, now tomorrow those same two adjustments will be one heck of a lot easier because we addressed it in a way you haven't had it before, right?
Never.
Okay, so that means that this will be easier. Okay, I'm going to get another one here. Brush your shoulders. There you go. They're pretty easy to adjust as well. Okay, take a deep breath. Blow it all out. This is where those triangles weren't coming together and you saw the notches in your joints. Not too bad?
No. The paper will.
Huh?
I put a hole in the paper. It's okay.
They're going to charge you for that. Nice deep breath. Blow out.
I'm putting my nose. Okay.
That's fine. All right, now here's what I want you to do. Lift up one leg then the other, and tell me how it feels. Go as high as you can, and tell me how that feels.
Not too bad.
Okay, but we're going to compare it again. Put it down. Let's do the other one. Now, let's make an observation. I want you to do them one more time, and remember, one was not lifting as easily as the other.
Yeah.
And we got this on film. So go ahead and do another leg lift and make an observation.
Okay. Okay. One.
Here I am.
Left is easier than I thought it would be.
Okay,
Is
so
that
look.
anything to do with it?
Left, you have these major misalignments in your pelvic area. We have curves the whole way down, and the only thing I adjusted was this neck that looked gnarly, right? Now your legs are lifting better, aren't they?
Definitely.
What does that mean with every one of your organs between your legs and where I just adjusted you?
You gave me some space.
So what that means is this: if your legs are operating better, and we didn't even touch your misalignment here, then that means every organ and system between your neck and your feet have improved, and I have not even gotten rid of the subluxations here yet. So do you see how miraculous that this type of care is, or honestly, how miraculous your body is? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you could do it in adjustment,
Well,
you know?
I'll tell you what, I'm just a catalyst and a reaction, but your body did that. I'll give you another one here. So not only does that make your software, and God's perfect software, wonderful, that makes me a total geek. Take a nice deep breath. Blow it all out. Okay, again, all the way out. There you go. Okay. Let's lay facing this direction as if you're on. Now you've had one similar to this,
Yeah.
right? Now you remember this big curve to the left. Make sure you relax your back, Take a deep breath. Let it all out. Lay on your back. Mhm. And now I'm going to have you sit up. And as you do, remember, all three canals in your ear, they go at different angles, right? X, Y, and Z coordinates. Are you dizzy at all? Okay, good. That's a good indication. Let's have you move down here a little bit. That shows you about your, like, you had concerns about vertigo.
Yeah.
In that you just changed several 90-degree angles and you didn't get dizzy.
Mhm.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. It doesn't happen a lot.
Let's go back this way.
The back.
Yeah, keep on going back. There you go.
No, back.
Put a hand on each shoulder, opposing shoulder. Okay, now you're gonna lay back on my hand and you're gonna blow out everything. Let's see how it goes. Good job. Let's do that again. Good job.
Was that tight? I mean, did I
Yeah.
release it?
You did everything. You did
Alright.
fine. Put your arms down.
Down?
Now this is where we do a traction move and separate these joints so you can have more motion, okay? So we're not gonna rotate or twist, we're gonna lift. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. And remember, when you pop a joint, can you pop it twice in a row?
No, I
Okay,
would
so-
think.
So what we're doing, even when you don't hear a pop, we're stretching you in the plane of motion you should have. So even if it doesn't pop, that doesn't mean the adjustment didn't go.
Oh.
It may have popped in another region or another adjustment position. Lay back here. Let your head fall back. Very good. All right, I'm going to have you stand up right here. We're going to do our dog and pony show again.
Okay. I am on TV tonight. Go ahead.
You're on it.
Yeah.
All right, now,
Ah.
without moving in any weird way you could describe, how does it feel only to stand without moving or checking range of motion?
Less pain, less tightness. I'm gonna use the word tight.
Okay?
Much more floating,
Mm-hmm.
much less pressure.
That's very, very interesting.
I
So
feel
you're
like
not,
I'm sort of just totally relaxed, my body.
okay.
And this side does not feel painful. My
Isn't that great?
Seriously, and maybe it's because I had my shoes off and I had them on before.
Same plane?
Yeah.
You want to try with your shoes
Yeah,
on?
let's see. Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's see if I feel that somewhere. Better.
Sam.
Shoes.
Okay, so, just so you know it's not your doubt. So in physics, here's what I want you to think about. If I move the flashlight a degree and then travel down the road, you know it's going to be far off, right? So we've taken several bones, may have changed some relationships a millimeter or two, but we've made everything move better within this misalignment. Maybe change your trajectory just a little bit, but in physics, anywhere where you have a curvature where you shouldn't is where surface area would be drawn down like gravity or water through a sponge. So if I can add exponential force back to a system, you feel stronger and you feel lighter,
Yeah, I do feel lighter.
okay? And if we've shifted you away from where you've been listing, okay, then that should feel lighter. Why? Well, it's not doing as much work, all right? So now I want you to take a nice deep breath without moving. You notice the difference?
Clearer,
Yeah.
easier to breathe.
So remember, you're saying concerned about milk, and milk will, in fact, and many other diets will actually increase your mucus, okay? The flip side of that is whenever joints aren't moving, when your scaffolding is off and it's immobile, then how can the organs within it that depend upon that motion actually complete its function so you may not be effectively moving your lungs enough that it would evacuate mucus that would be appropriate during milk?
So mucus could be, I mean, it wouldn't create mucus.
Well, milk would create mucus, but you'd be more effective
Oh, I see.
and it would be more forgiving.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't mean we drink more milk. That simply means that maybe something's not malfunctioning or
Yes.
your diet isn't as bad as you have a malfunction that wouldn't allow you to adapt to something with a buffer zone.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Okay, so in that you're breathing better, that also takes a load off your heart. Okay, so now put your head down and back. Okay,
Fluid, more fluid.
left and right.
Oh, turn it like that.
Sure.
Little on this.
Yeah. So remember, it's a system of doing a little bit over time, like braces and working out. You're going to adapt to me being the catalyst between the visits. you should feel the evidence of work throughout your body, no different than a personal trainer getting you a really good workout, okay? And nothing changes without symptoms. People fear symptoms, so therefore when they have a symptom, they annihilate the symptom, but the symptom is the evidence of your body adapting to a stimuli, and that's the perfect software doing the right job, not malfunctioning, not doing something scary, but allowing you to feel good and bad, so you're rewarded or you know what to stay away from. And whenever I adjusted you, some of it was uncomfortable, wasn't it? But it did in fact feel good at the same time. So what your software does is there's this thing called a bliss point, where even when I adjust you and I'm pushing on the area that hurts you the most, but it felt good at the same time I was doing it, your brain's saying, hey, that did hurt, I need that. So where I was pressing where it was swelling, your brain released hormones that say, hey, I want you to do that again, right?
And you did that based on that x-ray. You saw all, I mean, you could.
And every time you come in, I'm going to be looking at your blueprint. Regardless of what I feel, I will be looking at that blueprint. Make sense? Sound safe?
Yeah.
Damn
no,
right.
that did not feel bad.
Okay, now I want you to walk it out. I got 2 more major adjustments to do, but I want you to walk it out and tell me how you feel in that walk.
Lighter, less stress.
Yeah. And look, I have done nothing with your muscles. I have only moved your joints. We are also going to incorporate not only stretches and range of motion exercises between your visits, but there's going to be therapy I'm doing right now that you haven't even experienced yet, and you're already getting this. This is seconds into your healing. That's how fast your nervous system is. Does that make sense?
So
Okay.
Now what?
We're going to do 2 major moves that will change your life. You ready?
It's gonna hurt.
It never hurts me. No, it will not hurt. I would like you to lay on your back.
Okay. Do I get to do the pulsar today, or is it
Yes,
not
you
time?
do.
Okay.
You're noticing that you feel better than you have in decades. Okay, because if the adjustments I just did on you produce that much effect for you, can you imagine after years of doing this who you would be when usually we think when we get older it gets worse, and that is not true.
Yeah, I don't think age. I think stay healthy, and I won't be caught up in age. But I know that's a little bit unrealistic.
Okay, so you're bad and then short on this side.
That side is short.
At least. Now that's you not weight bearing. Can you imagine if you're running or you're weight training?
Yeah.
What would happen to the structure if you put a lot of weight on that? Would it be more?
Yeah.
And if it were more, would it
That's
affect
not
your knee
running.
that you had surgery on?
Yeah.
And what it doesn't even look like really a bunion, right? It doesn't even really look like that, but it shifted your toe more on one side than it did the other, and you had pointy
So
toes.
don't run.
Don't run.
Yeah, walk long distance even is okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, no issue with that hurting my
No.
bunion,
No.
or whatever you wanna call it.
Okay, so we're gonna take that bone that was rotated and didn't look the same size.
Oh,
properly.
sorry, I'm
That's
just,
okay.
yeah, I'm moving
That's
your
all right.
plan.
That's all right. You haven't done this before. Now, take a deep breath, blow out, and table drop. Not too bad, huh?
Alright.
Okay, again. All the way out. So you remember when you got up the first time, you say, oh, I feel relaxed all over? Watch what happens when I give you back inch height on this side. Okay? Put this down. Now you can put down both.
Down.
Now this is a neck adjustment, and it uses a very simple tool. So you'll hardly feel this.
Guillotine.
You'll hardly feel it, and that's what everyone calls it.
I said that thing, guillotine.
All right. So,
How about those earrings, are they in the way?
oh, those earrings are beautiful.
No, I don't wanna hurt them. I mean, I don't wanna get them in the way.
I can work around that. Here we go. Now remember where those vertebrae were gluing together with scar tissue?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to move them around and get them nutrition to the joint surfaces. And because none of your cells are but months old, if your nerves detect that those cells are functioning and getting motion, they'll be kicked out of the system and functional cells will be brought back in. Bring your teeth together. You don't have to grit them, just have them together. This will be a gentle drop.
Yeah, I have a knife draw for my, what do they say,
Yeah.
grinding.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually bit my tongue, I shouldn't have had, I was kinda half talking.
Come on. You good?
Yeah.
How about dizzy? None?
No, not dizzy at all.
Okay, we're gonna turn you this way. Put your feet down here. Both feet.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is an instrument that vibrates at a certain frequency that when it goes on tissue that's nice and healthy, it feels awesome. Okay, when it starts to run across areas that have a lot of scar tissue, it's more rigid. So this is like an opera singer in the glass. When I run this over the rigid tissue, it'll break it apart, and then that'll catalyze more growth will go in there because we're freeing up wide scar tissue to begin with. Make sense? So now we're going to address some of the muscle components of what you've been doing. How's that feeling? Pretty intense?
Yeah.
Does it hurt and feel good?
It kind of made me feel dizzy for a second, but I think it just...
It is, because remember, there's 5 writing reflexes here, right?
Yeah.
So when I get close to the bottom of your brain,
Yeah.
it vibrates those reflexes and actually makes them even more tuned in.
Really?
Yeah, because you're vibrating them so they get a lot of attention,
Yeah.
a lot of stimulus. Now remember, one side is not like the other, and you have a curvature that makes these muscles feel different than these muscles.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do, is even them out so you have even function more and more every time you come in, just a little bit at a time, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, we're just going to do that a little bit. I'm going to do our dog and pony show again. Why don't you stand
All
up?
right.
How does that feel standing now compared to that first time?
Very relaxed.
Even
Very
more so.
more so relaxed.
Okay, so remember, we did 2 adjustments. One was on the neck, one was on the hips. Look what that did to your complete body. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. Take a deep breath. Compare that to your last deep breath.
Yeah, I do feel more open.
Okay, it's massively better. Now, while you're running and exercising, when you get excited about something extremely good or bad on the continuum, will you have more of an appropriate response when you're reading the environment, that if something got tough, if all these joints are moving, if your muscles are moving, if your respiratory system is at its optimum, that it would even unload your heart in that event. Do you see what I'm saying? See, this is why it all does work together. That's why you have a master system that governs everything, and the intensity of your reactions, the intensity of your symptoms are governed not only by the nervous system, but the emotions. You've been a teacher, and you know what I'm saying is true, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Turn your head left and right and see how that feels.
Yeah, a little better.
Right?
I still feel it here, but not as bad.
Right. So
I think this is an ongoing issue with me with...
that's going to go away, and it's there for a perfect reason, because your curvature has made one muscle work harder, and where that muscle attaches most distal, away from the center, is where it works the hardest and where you get the most scar tissue. That was an adaptation, not a failure.
Well, and I started carrying a backpack when I was in Nepal, and after a week or 2 of that, I really...
Yeah.
That was when it kicked in, but it was putting pressure on it.
Next time, Nepal, wear the backpack backward and you build it.
Yeah,
So look,
that's true.
it's true. So now I'm going to have you take a walk and tell me how that feels.
That's better. Red carpet, I'm ready for.
So,
Roll it out.
is that grossly different from
Yeah,
even the
it's
last
much
time?
better. Yes.
Okay, so now that we've reduced stress and everything's fluidly moving, even within the muscle sequence where some muscles travel over several bones, that means if those bones that were most restricted within that span of muscle is working better, like a computer system, the brain cell to the tissue cell that wasn't moving well, now all of those get recalibrated like a computer program, but it's the perfect computer program. So as things start to show a pattern of behavior where they're fluidly moving, exchanging nutrition, excreting waste, just like you go into the gym, why would you not produce a healthier cell where you have scar cell? If the signal to the brain is different, then the genetic code of that cell has to be filled, and that's called epigenetics. So you should get healthier as you get older. Does that make sense?
That 9-month cell.
And remember, this is replicable, and that's biology, and that's called biophysics, laws of living tissue. Okay, so that is in fact what's going on here, and it's so simple. Does that make sense? Because God made it that way. That's why the software is perfect, and all the species through billions of cycles have the same software. They were successful, okay? So if you trust in that, if you have faith that that nervous system is always going to heal, it's all about you, okay? If I free it up, then all the cells start to behave well. Look, this is one adjustment. Is this not grossly different from how you've been feeling? I didn't cure you. That's you.
Yeah, it does.
I had a couple of seconds, honestly, in force, seconds in force. But look at who you are now. That's you.
Yeah, it feels good.
Come on over here.
All right.
So I'm going to set you up with something that is going to help to deliver energy to your cells, okay? So remember, nerve cells have a function. They deliver messages to and from your body cells, your tissue cells, okay? So they use their own energy because they produce their own energy. Your tissue cells produce their energy, all right? So tissue cells are considered capacitors or batteries. And whenever I pulse you with pulsed electromagnetic frequencies, right? And remember, you're made of EMF fields, right? You're like this great big antenna, okay? So whenever I pulse you with this, this is kind of like me telling you, in the next few months, I want you to eat well, so you have good energy, good tissues. I want you to stretch a lot, okay? And I want you to think well, because there's nothing more draining than an emotion. Would you agree? Okay? So I'm trying to get your body energized and contain energy, because your energy will give me better results. Now, having said that, if I turn on a device that delivers the energy you are literally made of, and I pour that energy right into your cells that are called batteries, if I can build up their charge on the inside, then immediately your nerves can access the energy that it would use to make your body adapt to that stimulus on the table much more quickly. Okay? So this type of technology is licensed for osteoporosis, fractures, okay, depression, or any degenerative tissue.
I have osteopenia. What's it called?
Osteopenia is
maybe, yeah.
is a phase right before
Right,
osteoporosis.
so I have to pay attention. Now, she said it wasn't extremely whatever, but that's what
Okay.
it showed.
So watch, if you have a lot of stress and anxiety, you know how like when somebody has heart disease and they work their heart really hard, they get a calcium inhibitor because they don't want the heart to work that hard, right? But if you were in a lot of anxiety, if your body was working really hard, it would need more calcium for contractions. So that tells me that your system might be so fight or flight based on certain parameters, it could be emotional, physical, or chemical, that is drawing calcium from your system. People go through that when they go through loss and divorce and things like that, okay? Now, having said that, this is an instrument that as I'm building your charge, it will help you with that. It's like a piezoelectric effect where we generate a charge, okay? So when we're pulsing you with this, 100% of your cells are going to be contracting. So you'll see your body jump a little bit and twitch, like you've had this before, right?
Yeah. You showed me like 5 minutes that
Okay.
last time I was here.
So whenever you're contracting those cells, you're purging and sucking in through interstitial fluids. That is the fluid between your cells, okay? So you have more interstitial fluid than you have cardiovascular fluid. Think about it, that's where the soil is in a sense, right? So as you're pumping those cells and you're exchanging in cycles per second, you're also activating the organs inside of that cell. So all of them are, in a sense, purging and sucking in, like respirating, therefore detoxifying and alkalizing. As we build up the cell charge, your nerves are able to use that energy to conduct business that will be stimulated, no different than you going to a personal trainer. Well, as I'm adjusting you, this should stimulate work, and if I give you energy, you should adapt to that quicker and really save the intensive frequency here, the time and money you spend with me. It should shorten that front end load, okay? Does that make sense? But on top of that, as we're going through and using all these cells, what if there was something going on unbeknownst? You would want extra energy in your body to deal with that and more neurological control. So are we already working on that?
Yeah, so the energy is actually healing. I mean, the extra energy will heal.
The extra energy will facilitate that God's perfect software will heal you.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
This not my adjustment or this doesn't heal. But if I can free up your nerves, if I can pour energy in, that's no different than if the plants have the right nutrition and you plant it in the right spot to thrive.
Yeah.
Right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Electromagnetic energy is what I'm getting, right?
That's right, and that is in fact what you actually are.
That's the compliment, an electromagnetic energy.
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah. It seems to be quite the device.
You know what? Here's the truth. PEMF has been around for decades and was in a number of hospitals. And in physics, remember, if I can deliver tons of PMF, it should increase how well your body works. That's interesting. They don't use it like they used to.
I know. It's true.
Okay, so now you're in charge. This is made for the patient to run. You can't mess this up. You can't hurt yourself. So I want you to drive this as high as you can comfortably tolerate that. And we're getting not only all your paraspinal muscles, but remember, this is a magnetic wave that travels through your whole body.
So
Okay?
everything's being affected.
Everything is being affected.
Focusing on lower back, right? What would you say you're focusing on?
Your focus is on the lower back right now because that carries most of the torque. And that's where a lot of this rotation is, okay? So here you are with very little discomfort, but we've seen a massively misaligned spine, right? So then whenever we gave just a little nudge to it, you notice that everything worked easy, but it wasn't even hurting before.
Right.
Okay? So as I put energy in this area, what I hope to do, or what will happen is, all the major muscle attachments, remember, gluteal, front of the leg, back leg, hamstrings, quadriceps, the sides of your leg, the abdominal and back muscles, these are the biggest muscles, and that's why it's attached to the largest bone surface. So whenever I'm pumping all these muscle endings to the biggest area of your body, and now think about this, the second brain of your body is right here, right in your gut, right? So as we're energizing that area, we are only accelerating what it can do with that energy. It's all about you, okay? Another really cool benefit that I get to talk about here, you have 7 layers of flora, right? Acidophilus, right?
Yes. And you're
So that is a species that is not yours. That's another animal living inside you. Did you know that?
I knew that acidophilus was something that, was alive.
Okay, so it relies on you being a really good home. Kind of like pneumonia relies on us being a really good home throughout our whole life, waiting to expose itself with an incident, right? So here we have a really good bacteria, or flora rather, and whenever it's living in your energy zone, it depends upon your health to thrive as well. So when we're pulsing this with direct current, it lives in your direct current, doesn't it? Okay, so as we're making this gut healthier, what do you think is happening to another species that really enjoys this energy?
No, it's going to grow.
It helps to thrive, okay? Now let's say hypothetically we have some really bad thoughts and we're going through some really hard times, like let's just say something like hypothetical, like a pandemic and financial issues and things like that. So what happens is this, that you ever hear the white wolf and the dark wolf, and a child says, oh my God, which one's going to win? This one's really scary, this one's really pure. And the master or the teacher says, whichever one you feed. So you know how there's nothing more draining than an emotion or a drama between your ears? Okay, you know everyone can insult themselves unlike anyone else can deliver an assault, right? So when this species here, I like to call it that, okay, is enduring a slaughter by your own brain, let alone maybe an event that we're going through or a duration of an event we're going through, then this little species down there, do you think it's as happy as ever? Completely don't know what's going on? Or based on how you feel, how does that affect your gut? Usually you feel it there, don't you?
People do say gut has a lot to do with this.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So that being said, whenever you create all this stress, you know what the main duty of your flora is. You're made of mostly nerves, and your brain cells are connected to every cell down here. It's even control what's in your blood values and your vital signs, because everything has to hit a nerve receptor on the inside of a lumen. That means a hole where air and water and blood and everything's passing through it. It hits nerve receptors to tell you what's going on in your blood, or a big sack of fluid, right? So whenever you get stressed, you're feeding the bad wolf. And this species in here is kind of like cutting off air or fresh water to a pond. You know how everything starts to die off and brown things starts to grow, then algae starts to grow. It's still life, but it depends on different chemistry. So it doesn't look as pretty, right? Because it's not thriving, the pH and everything's changed, the energy's changed. So that's what's going on in here, where the bugs that live in there, a brand new regime of bugs start to rise up, right? Kind of like Democrats and Republicans, right?
Yeah.
So,
Conflict, yeah.
so what happens is those bugs can do damage, because when they thrive, they eat through your cell walls and all that, okay? Now, when I'm energizing your body, this doesn't take care of the emotional thoughts, but it does help that bug to thrive. It does help to give all the cells energy so they can be more resilient in the face of stress, whether you're imposing it upon yourself or you're enduring or there's an event. So does that make sense? So in reality, when you're in a machine like this, by adding energy to this system, remember, the nervous system is completely omniscient. There ain't nothing it don't know, right? So whenever I add energy to that, that will help you to adapt. And remember, adaptation is health. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Booyah.
So back to yogurt. I know it has esophageal. I can't say it. But
It sounds really cool when you say it.
Esophageal. So anyway, that word, it has plenty of that. Is that worth having it, even though it can create
Absolutely.
mucus?
Great
You wouldn't worry
nutrition.
about the mucus though?
Well, just remember, there's a lot of things that jalapeno create mucus. It has capsaicin in it. It'll actually help you, right?
Yeah.
So acidophilus has its benefits.
Acidophilus.
Will it bring on some mucus? Yes, it will. But
That's
if you,
not the worst thing in the world.
not for the purposes that you're eating this food.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's say if there was other issues going on, you were having real mucus issues, then we may be much more defined on that.
Yes.
But that doesn't seem like that's an issue for you,
I mean, I
and
think
yet
I'm
dairy does
congested
produce
a lot.
mucus.
I do think I tend to be congested, but not like I'm sick from it.
Okay, well, know this, okay? We're going to help you adapt to that, not so you can have more dairy, but so that the natural and appropriate reaction, the reflex you have in your system between brain cell and tissue cell, mucus is the appropriate response, but if we give it a positive signal, then the response will be much more palliative to you.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so on your next visit, we'll be talking if we don't pull the trigger on it. I'm telling you, if you make that leap of faith right there, all right, it will change your life, all right? And remember what I was saying, between the brain cell and tissue cell, the governor of the intensity is the emotional perception. Do you understand why we adjust, we energize, and we antivirus God's perfect nervous system? Okay? Because what else is there after that? It makes you resilient, okay? It's not curing you, it's making you resilient so you can cure yourself,
Yeah, bounce back.
okay?
All right, so for my understanding, just turn this up.
Jack
about
that as
8.
high as you can comfortably tolerate that.
All right, and then nothing here.
No.
This is the only button.
Yeah, we'll change up those other parameters later, but
All
for
right,
now,
that's
we
the
just
main
want you to have as much energy
Is
as you
that
can.
considered high, low? What do I have it on?
It's, honestly, it's all perception
Okay.
of you. So let's say you're working in your yard all weekend and did a wonderful project, or you were laying on the beach all last week, okay? You're gonna come in with two different types of tone and
I see.
inflammation,
Yeah.
so the number, honestly, go by feel, don't even look at the numbers.
All right,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
just
all
so I-
feel, everything's feeling,
All right, good.
all right? So you have any questions?
No, I think I've gotten a thorough understanding and I feel better.
So what do you think that is?
Why are they that way?
Why do they say, you know what, I'm done? They lost hope.
Yeah.
They're believing what the herd believes in
That is
at their age, with the critical state of a condition that has raised their head, classically like a heart attack that's been around for decades, and by the time that this system determines you have a condition, then you are working against either the inorganic substance you got to take in your body to adjust symptoms, and then those symptoms were put in by the omniscient nervous system to adapt you to that stress. So if I knock out the ability to adapt, what happens to your body? Does it get healthier and vibrant? So you're knocking out adaptation, aren't you? Okay, so friends are kind of like drinking that Kool-Aid, aren't they? They're not taking initiative. They are listening. They are following. You, asking me a bunch of questions, okay? But you know what? That's the kind of patient I get. Why? Should I be able to answer their questions?
Yeah, they wouldn't be here if, I mean, I wouldn't think they would be here unless they want answers. I
Boom.
mean, I'm not just a little robot.
Now look,
Yeah.
you're not a robot, and I don't want to take care of robots, you
No,
know?
they aren't gonna change.
And we're not going to change the world if there's a bunch of robots, are we? Okay? So whenever you're asking these questions, you're nothing personal to me. You just want to make sure you're safe.
Well, no, I think you like people that are inquisitive.
Well, I do.
You know?
I do. And remember, when they don't take responsibility for their health, look at the national statistics on what happens when you try to take care of your health in America. Heart disease has always been number one since before I became a chiropractor, and that's why I became a chiropractor. Cancer has always been a close neck and neck second. Never changed. Okay, so I don't think it's the medical doctors doing this to us, it's the way the system's working. Just do an investigation on what the third largest cause of death is, and then get back to me on that.
Car
All right.
I'm gonna say car accidents. I don't know.
It's called medical care, not mistakes. It's
Oh,
called
oh,
medical
oh,
care.
yeah.
It was like that before I went to college too,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So it's not because they're doing
It's
bad jobs.
drugs and everything that they're taking that are not helping.
Well, you know, the attempt is to help, but remember, when we have a set of symptoms, no different than a set of symptoms I expect you to have whenever I give you several adjustments and make all this change. Well, you better have some symptoms in between, or I'm probably not doing anything for you,
Right.
okay? But if we do something synthetic in a completely organic environment, mankind has never gone into an ocean, river, pond, air, nowhere, and did an equal job of God. That hasn't happened. So if I do something synthetic in an organic environment, is there no consequences, or are there long-term implications? So remember, if there's a category within like an organ system or organ itself, and it's not falling within that, you got to look at why your body's trying to adjust the parameters of your body, and that can only be stress. So if I knock out why that doesn't look normal, and I knock out your adaptation, can you understand why people may not survive through that? From you. Every one of them do. Tumors don't happen to you. Depression doesn't happen to you. These are either inhibitions that would not be appropriate based on what you've experienced, that your nerves would adjust all the emotional, physical, and chemical factors in your life. So whenever something isn't happening, it's like, hey, wait a minute, I want to have a really good libido. I want to have a really good mood. I want to have great athleticism after I lost my whole family. No, that doesn't happen, sorry. You see what I'm saying?
That's stress, yeah.
Okay, so stress comes in many forms, and stress is a continuum. Stress is good and bad. Stress is necessary. Okay, but it's how resilient is your body to good and bad stress. Remember, can you have too much good stress? You can. Okay?
Yeah, something to pull you, push you.
So it's always about homeostasis, okay? And how every cell of your body is reading your environment, creating a reflex on what is predictable in that 98% subconscious. Does that make sense? Okay, and then that's what keeps you flowing. Your 94% communication comes from the ease with which you're interpreting an environment. Does that make sense? So if your nerves, the master system, are fully flowing, and your organs are very, very responsive, then your perception of the environment should be much more fluid and less stressful. But if there are fight or flight programs that you've experienced, that you've written, that sets up certain parameters that adjust you under stress, it may look like you're failing, but in reality, it's based on what you've experienced that gives you the most perfect response, no matter how that looks. Does that make sense? Because the perfect nervous system cannot fail. And we know that because every species has gone through billions of cycles of it. No matter how many times the world has been recreated, this is the operating system we use.
Yeah,
Right?
interesting, yeah.
All right. I mean, it should give you a hell of a lot more faith in just what's going on with your body instead of just waiting. You're literally in command.
Yeah,